What are we going to call this thing, just by the way? That other motoring show. What are we going to call this thing, just by the way? That other motoring show.
I quite like
Let's
the
go
top of the
motoring
chat.
What do you like?
The top of the chat.
The top of the chat. What is the acronym for that? I'm scared.
What's that?
It says William is on my top of my chat.
I think it should be that other motoring show.
It's easy. And of course, you know what's happened? Steven's just dropped off the chat. Figures.
Well, his internet appears to be doing what mine did last time.
It's between the two of you. I hope one day we'll get it right.
Shall we chat?
Oh. First thing up on my agenda was I got invited to, wait for it, a chat by Michelin on fleet management. So
what do you know about fleet management?
Well, as it turns out, I now know a lot more than I did before. For example,
a lot more.
If you were running a fleet, what do you think the percentage of your total spend every year is on tyres? Obviously being Michelin. How much do you think you spend on tyres running your fleet as a total percentage of your total cost of operations?
3%.
15%.
Stephen is an engineer and he's very close.
Oh, wow.
It's 5%.
Okay.
How much do you think your fuel bill is?
30%.
85%.
You can see Miles as the accountant because it's 5%. It's 30%. How can it be 85%, Stephen?
Because fuel is expensive.
Yeah, not that expensive.
They're not driving anywhere.
The point that Michelin make is that the tyres may only be 5%, but the influence it has on the 30% of your fuel bill is actually quite staggering. So they reckon with their super efficient, high performance truck tyres, they can reduce your fuel bill by a litre per 100 kilometers.
Oh, the tyres just made out of plastic. There's zero running resistance.
It's made out of rubber, and it's got a whole bunch of French engineering behind it that makes it reduce the running resistance. Blah, blah. Whatever. They've got a whole bunch of data that actually backs all this stuff up.
Okay.
So it turns out your net actual costs of running these things over a period of time is significantly lower if you fit the appropriate tyre, which I found is interesting. So there we go. Well done, Michelin. And yeah, very interesting in terms of our fleets and scientific. There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on there, but we'll get into that at a later stage. The other thing that happened that's on my channel, my thing of news, is I went on the Toyota launch, the new Hilux, the GR-S Mark III, which is not, Miles, you'll be disappointed to hear, it's not a Raptor replacement. It's actually more of a wild track.
I'm glad they admit that, because at least then I don't need to insult them as to why it's not a Raptor.
No. It's going head to head with a wild track. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it is.
Fair enough. Any good?
I have to say they've done so. This is GR-S 3. GR-S 1 was cosmetic, some stickers, some badges, make it look pretty. GR-S 2 was a power upgrade from 150 to 165 kilowatts. 500 newtons to 550 newton meters. Same engine on this one, but now they've done the suspension. And
what have they done to the suspension?
That makes a big difference. So they've widened the running track, either by 70 or 140 millimeters across. I think there was a little bit of confusion whether 70 millimeters a side or 70 millimeters total track. But they've increased the width of Don't look so confused, Stephen. You can do it. Put in longer drive jobs. You
can do it, but you can also know what your specs are before you speak to the press. But never mind.
Well, it's a case of it doesn't matter.
I'll give you a measuring tape for your birthday. You can take it with to press launches.
I was at the big machine show today, and I almost bought myself one of these digital micrometers for measuring.
You need quite a big micrometer to measure the track of a vehicle, but
I just need to measure the increase. To tell me where the old one was, and I can measure the new one and tell them. measuring exactly these kind of things, so I can walk around and
Definitely
the riders. I mean, that upgrade on the suspension is. I think anyone who's bought a GR-S version 2 is now going to be quite cross because the GR-S version 3 is that much better.
Can we just tell everyone what GR-S stands for?
Go for it.
Well, I was hoping you could tell me.
No, I have no idea. Toyota come up with this GR. I mean, all the brands do it, right? So you have GR, which is actually, GRN is the peak of the pyramid, right at the top. That's your performance.
I mean, it's Gazoo Racing Sport, GR-S, Gazoo Racing Sport.
No. So GR, there's GRN, GR-S, and then I think there's something. I think that's it. So the GRN is the hardcore stuff, right? I think GR is not quite hardcore. It's a pyramid, right? It's a pyramid. There you go. So put your GR hat on, and GR-S is basically the cosmetics. Though why this is GR-S with the performance upgrade in it, I don't know. I actually do have a picture of their pyramid on here. If you stand by, I'll find it and look it up for you.
Oh wow, this will be thrilling.
But it's quite nice that they are placing an emphasis on ride comfort, because that to me has always been the shortcoming of general buckies in a daily context. And what I really liked about the Raptor is that you have phenomenal ride quality and something with moderate utility. I don't need to put a ton on the back, but I would like to be able to tow something reasonably heavy and go over holes in the road and not feel.
And you would also like to, when you don't have a load on the back, not have your spine shattered.
Yes.
By going over road unevenness.
The all-new Toyota Hilux GR-S 3, the third iteration in the GR-S series. It's more than just a facelift here. This is Toyota's answer to the Ford challenge of the Wildtrak X, which of course is Ford's offering for the serious off-road enthusiast. These two are head-to-head, with the Ford being around about 70 grand, give or take, depending on your warranty options that you take out on the car. About 70 grand more expensive than the Toyota's list price, which comes in at 999. That's 999,000 rand. This all-new GR-S though has a wider wheelbase, and it offers completely new suspension that really vastly improves the ride comfort across any manner of terrain that this thing has been tailored to conquer. Much like the Wildtrak X, you can see it sports knobbly off-road tyres, in this case from BF Goodrich, and Toyota have specified a tyre that they say offers less road noise than competing brands when on the open road. Certainly when you're on launch, the Hilux's cabin is impressively insulated at speed, and the improved ride means it's a shoo-in as a daily vehicle. That's no mean feat for a dedicated off-roader. On launch, we did some tough dirt roads, we did dunes, we did gravel, and the Hilux throughout showed SUV-like comfort. Power-wise, the Hilux has the Ranger beaten using Toyota's 2.8 GD diesel burner, which seems to be their standard offering across much of their range of all manner of vehicles. But in S mode, or S guys, GR-S guys, if we're going to be completely pedantic, it pushes out 165 kilowatts, 550 newton meters. Ranger pushing out about 154 kilowatts and 500 newton meters from its 2-litre turbocharged derivative. Ford, however, claim less fuel consumption, around about 7.5 litres per 100, and Hilux are doing it at around about 8.7. Honestly, they're both dreaming. You're never going to get away with less than around about 10 in day-to-day driving, and that's if you're being careful. Where Hilux does show a little bit of vulnerability is in its gearbox. Here we have a 6-speed automatic versus Ford's 10-speed, which is silky smooth. It's a little disappointing, to be honest, but the 6-speed does get the job done, and that's even despite the fact that it absolutely and utterly ignores the inputs made by the driver via the flappy paddles. In all honesty, the flappy paddles, you could ditch them, no one would even notice, no one would care. Standard 4x4 modes on the Toyota are switchable on the fly. In other words, you're 2 high, 4 high. If you want to go to 4 low, though, you do need to put the gearbox into neutral to engage that. You have an electronic diff, which is pretty much standard these days. But interestingly enough, there are no off-road modes. What Toyota do give you is you can select between power and eco as a mode setting on the gearbox when you're driving, which is more of a driving style change than anything significant in that. On the interior, as you've just seen, the Hilux is showing its age a bit. Here, I think the Ford does leave it a little bit in its dust with a vastly superior electronic interface versus the largely analog approach which is favoured by the more traditional Hilux. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, are you a Ford guy or gal, or are you a Toyota guy or gal, as to which one you're going to go for, because the offerings between them, performance-wise, very similar. It's going to come down to the nitty-gritty and the finer details. And for me, the choice is always interesting. If you're not a Ford or a Toyota guy, which is the one you're going to pick? Is it going to be the new tech from Ford, or is it going to be that Hilux legendary tough reliability reputation? That, as always, is up to the consumer. Get your bum in a seat, take one for a test drive, and find out for yourself.
So that was the launch. We'll see when they come out. Toyota have asked us to embargo it until after the elections. That's, this whole thing is going to come up, but obviously this video will come out after the elections anyway. So if it comes out, we'll be good on that.
If it comes out at all. Talking about buggies, I've got 2 that I'd like to chat about. The first is the JAC T9. Now, I don't know what JAC stands for. They
a pyramid here for this.
There's no pyramid, but
hats.
No pyramid.
I was going to say this is starting to become culturally insensitive. JAC T9 did tell me, but is a Chinese
we need our hats
buggy.
on. Is there?
That's actually not bad. So we had a go in one earlier this week, and interior wise,
have you driven the GWM-P6?
I haven't.
Okay. No,
but I mean, yeah, from an interior quality point of view, I mean, it's got a big sort of touchscreen interface that's very similar to the Everest in that sort of same portrait layout.
The Ranger.
What
the Ranger, not the Everest. The Everest.
Yeah. Same.
There should be a version of the Ranger. Yeah, but yeah.
They've got the same screen.
Yeah.
So that's very impressive, and it's not there's no Chinglish or anything going on. It's quite good. In terms of premium feel on all the buttons and everything, it's like feels Merc quality in terms of everything you touch. Great leather everywhere. The only downside was that the ride was not that good. Probably akin to something like an Isuzu. Doesn't come close to a Wild Track Ranger. 2-liter diesel motor with 125-ish kilowatts or so. Some torque, but generally drove quite well. I mean, we've all become used to buckies with, I don't know, whatever, 180 kilowatts out of that V6. But
what box does it have?
It's got a ZF box.
Okay.
Yeah.
8-speed? 6-speed?
Some speeds. I don't know. They didn't get that far in the detail. But all they have to say is ZF, and everyone's like, okay, well, then it's good. Don't worry. Genuinely, like a good package. And the top spec model was 650-ish, call it, 1,000 Rand.
Okay, so pricing is competitive, yeah.
If you're in a position where you're spending your own money, that has to be a very appealing. I mean, there's not much brand snobbery about it, but it must be quite difficult to justify the additional 300,000 Rand under these economic conditions.
Well, I mean, if you're going to compare apples with apples. I mean, if you're going to look at 650, for top of the range versus whatever you're going to pay for top of the range Toyota, as you said, $999. But I mean, you can't compare the suspension on the Hilux GR-S 3 with this. I mean, I'm sorry, you just can't.
I completely agree, but can you?
Rest of toys in there. Well, we'll see. I mean, in the sales figures, they'll sell like 6, and Toyota will sell 2,000. That'll be the end of it.
Will they though?
That's the bottom line.
Well,
we don't know. I mean, I
see a lot of P series on the road.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple of P series on the road. Most of them behind me because they're dreadfully slow now. Be that as it may. It'll be interesting to see. I think the Chinese. I mean, you'd see a lot of the Cherries, the SUVs, the Havals, the GWM. You see a lot of those on the roads these days. I mean, when you consider how many Cherries we saw back in the day when they first started arriving on our shores, it was like, oh, there's a Cherry. It was an exception. Today, it's the norm, and that's in a relatively short space of time. They are selling like crazy. And I think it's because of the pricing, of course.
Of course. The Bucky market will end up. Bucky market will end up in the same place at some point. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure I agree with you, Miles, because I mean, Bucky's tend to do hard miles and lots of them. I mean, we're not talking about the pavement jewelry that adorns Santa. We're talking about the Buckies that actually go to work in the real.
Well, precisely. So the T9 is very much the T9 plays very much in the space of the double cab sort of activity leisure type Bucky market.
Sure.
It's not a workhorse, and maybe whatever their workhorse is, and I think it's called an X200 or something. Fair, those might not sell so well, but when there's a 300K or 300K price difference, that's substantial.
You raise a valid point. It's going to come down to that ride, I think. We'll see.
Quite possibly. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
No, that's an interesting space. I mean, there's nothing to hold back on the Chinese. As I say, the quality has moved on in leaps and bounds. So one question I had for you that I didn't get to was, does it have 1,001 different bongs for when the door is open, for when your seatbelt's off, when your lights are not on, when the windshield wipers are not running, when the rear view mirror, you're not looking at it often enough? No bongs.
No bongs.
That's amazing.
Well, not that I heard. There might have been there might have been a door bong, but I didn't drive with my door open, so it was hard to tell. Stephen,
we'll make a motoring journalist of you yet. Small steps.
Stephen is in the Northern Cape. For what good reason, I'm not sure, but tell us about your rental car, Steve.
Yeah, so I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location in the Northern Cape, but
that's why you're a bit fuzzy.
It was internet connection is not great, but the beer is cold, so we'll take it. But we flew up.
I'm going to edit that out.
We flew to Uppington and had a 3.5-hour drive from Uppington to my undisclosed location, and insert hire car here. So hire car.
Why didn't you just drive from Joburg to your undisclosed 3.5-hour location from Uppington? Surely it would have been about the same distance.
Yeah, it'll be much quicker getting home tomorrow. So not flying out of Uppington. So that's we're not here to query logistics.
I'm just trying to digress from the horror of the story that's about to arise.
This is more relevant than R1 million Bucky to 90% of the population. So, hire car was a Polo. Looks nice enough. Are we arguing about the car? Then you must choose different content. What would you like to talk about, William? Continue.
No, do tell us about your Polo. What size motor does it have?
I don't know.
Which Polo is it? Hold on. Oh, you don't know.
It's a sedan. It's white. And
is it a Viva? Is it the Viva?
No, it's the proper Polo. I do not know what engine size it has in it. according to the manual, it can have 3 different engine sizes. It can have a 1500 or a 1 liter or a 1600. And there is no way to identify what engine the car has in it.
If you
Despite
open the
opening
bonnet,
the
does it say
it says
TSI on it?
MPS on it. No, it's not a TSI. So I suspect it's the 1600. It kind of goes a bit like a normally aspirated 1600, but it's an auto. And it has the most ridiculous ratios I've ever driven of any car ever. It has a 6-speed
How
auto
many-
box.
Wait, hang on. This is the guy who's had several MGs and owns a Mini.
Yes, and all of them are appropriately geared.
And
This-
an Alpha.
Insert engine capacity here, Polo, is geared for what speed do you think in top gear? Let's have a pop quiz.
In top
If you
gear.
had a
Auto.
mine shaft long enough to drive it down, how fast would it go eventually before it hit the red line?
If it's
in
geared-
a
if it's
6-speed,
geared- Yeah, a 6-speed
Hmm.
auto on a small Polo is probably geared for something stupid like well over 200 k's an hour. But yeah,
Nope.
it's just a guess.
180.
They'd be going.
325.
325.
325. So
You know,
at
you
a
know,
re-
What's
at a
terminal velocity?
reasonable at a reasonable check of half of that, you're doing 3,000 RPM. So anything approaching the national speed limit in top gear, you see a hill and it needs to kick down into 5th gear and then possibly into 4th. So if you cast your mind back to 5-speed gearboxes on
With an
1800
4-speed with
cars
another
in the
car.
90s,
Yeah.
you'd be doing 120 to 140, somewhere in the range of 3.5 to 4,000 RPM, and it can go uphill and dale at that. This is geared for absurd fuel consumption, but it's practically impossible. Well, it's not impossible to drive. It just kicks down. So eventually, I put it into manual and I put it in 5th, and I left it there because otherwise, it's just hunting through the box continuously for 3 hours of driving. It's bizarre. I mean,
But it's-
obviously it's
it's
to chase
something.
some
You-
kind of fuel consumption requirements,
You
but
just need to change
hell,
your
it's
driving style.
frustrating.
What was the fuel consumption like? You haven't filled it up
ran
yet.
at about no, I filled it up. I didn't work it out because I couldn't be bothered. But on its onboard computer over a 300-kilometer drive, it ran at about 7.8
Meaningful.
liters per 100 k's.
That's not very good.
That's not great.
No, because I had to put it in 5th gear all the time. So
Amend your driving style.
it was
You need
going
to
a
be
reasonable.
flexible
No,
and accommodate
you don't
of
need
the-
to amend your driving style. How would I amend my driving style to suit this thing?
I'll tell you exactly how you amend your driving style. You get out of
Absolutely.
that and you get into what I'm driving at the moment, which is the XC40
yeah.
twin recharge.
Oh,
let me
yes.
tell you how-
So that's an electric car. How would that have fared on my 350-kilometer drive between Uppington and the undisclosed location in the Northern Cape?
It's a Toyota charge.
There
And
must
then
be a
where do I
solar farm
charge
out
it
there
here?
somewhere.
I don't know. You'd have to find someone to
I'll go and
charge
find a
there.
solar field to plug it into.
Don't
Yeah.
make your problems mine. I'm talking about an illustration of changing your driving style. And when you're in an XC40 twin recharge, let me tell you what happens to your driving style. It
Goodness.
changes. Because suddenly everything around you is just so pokey and so slow and so mundane. You might as well be using an old Nokia from the 90s in everything else. This is the latest. It is just outstanding in every respect.
What's the range?
Smooth, quiet, about 390 on a full charge.
Real world, or is that what they tell you?
Yeah, real world. They do say depending on how you drive it, you might get a little bit less. So I'd say I'd probably get 250.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I'm joking. The regen on the car is really interesting. So the rate at which you accelerate reduces your range a little bit, but it's nowhere near as bad as on a petrol fueled car. So your range doesn't vary dramatically depending on how you drive. It varies dramatically on actually not a lot. Even on open road, it's pretty consistent. So I don't know how they've done the mathematics behind it, but they've done it to the point where it is actually pretty much spot on. I do admit that I have a 90 kilowatt charger just down the road from me, which I do make regular use of. But honestly, from 25% battery to 70% in just under an hour, that's fine. I mean, I'm doing emails and checking WhatsApps and what have you, whilst I'm just sitting in the car, just watching it going, literally up percent.
Sounds great.
No,
You've got nothing better to do with your time.
It's a thing of wonder. I absolutely adore it, and I want one.
What I will say, the Volvo EVs that I've driven, I don't know what it is, but the regen braking is better than, it's better calibrated than anything else I've driven.
The one pedal driving, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes one pedal driving. You do not need a brake pedal in a Volvo. No. It's really it's quite a bizarre thing.
Just on that service interval, 30,000 Ks, are you ever going to change brake pads during the life of that car? Probably not. Because the regen is aggressive. And even if you touch the brakes, it's just actually adding extra regen. It's not actually using the brake pads. You can feel when the brake pads are kicking in, because on this particular model, it's done, I think, 15,000 Ks, and there's a slight bit of brake shudder, so you know when the brake pads are actually biting, which is very, very rare.
How is that brake shudder on?
How's there brake shudder on something that the brakes never work that's only done 15,000 Ks?
It's minuscule. It's minuscule. It's insignificant in the greater meaning of the force. You just need to drive one, and that's the end of it.
I mean, I understand brake shudder on my Kia that's done 330,000 Ks, but...
I don't know. It's a journo card abused by journalists or something. I don't know. It's tiny, but it just serves to you can actually pick up when the brakes are actually kicking in, and it's not often. I mean, it really is not often. You have to be driving like a complete moron to be able to actually get the brakes to adjust in. And half the fun is just accelerating like hell to where you're going to stop and seeing if you actually how close it is with one pedal driving to the actual stop point that you get to. So, I mean, you're playing these little games all the time, and no one else in the traffic around you understands what's going on, other than the fact that all of a sudden you were next to them and now you're not. You're just so far ahead of them.
Does anyone care?
Makes no difference. They do, actually. I must say it's one of the few cars I've driven where people are genuinely sort of rolling down the windows and saying, "What's in that thing?" I had a poor guy in a Discovery, not a Discovery, I beg your pardon, a Defender, a V8 Defender, the big one, who was just like, no, that was a bit rude, because I left him for dead. I mean, for dead. Like he was standing still. And he was like, "Yo, Boot, what have you got in that thing?" I was like, "It's electric." He's like, "Holy moly." Couldn't believe it. Yeah. No, it's proper. And then I'll go one better. I mean, I've got some new good friends at Citizen Motoring. My new best friends. You like so out, they're in. And we were at Geratech on Monday morning. Eventually. At Geratech Monday morning with the EX30. Claimed 0 to 100, 3.8. Actual, 3.91. That's pretty close.
So it's
3.91, to put it in your guys' speak and something that you can understand, SL55 AMG V12, the big one. What do you think that did, 0 to 100?
4.2.
4.5 seconds. M5. I mean, there's just a list of things that this thing just eats.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that Stephen nor I care about 0 to 100 times. That's the problem.
Well, that's
you
why,
can't compare it.
I do care. Say again?
It's a completely different manner of generating power and torque. I mean, of course it's going to do that. It is
And it's better
unsurprising.
in every way.
So
Yeah.
let's talk
It
top
is
speed,
irrelevant.
okay?
Limited to 100 meg.
To go on the irrelevant discussion, let's say top speed. How's your top speed on your Volvo?
Limited to 180.
Well, limited.
Why?
Because because the battery would just die. So
No. So I had that chat. I had that chat with Greg at the X30 launch, and I said to him, the aftermarket thing for these things is gonna be huge, because the Oaks are going to want to take the limiters off. They want to put bigger cables in, and that's what happens. And he says, well, yeah, they do have electric.
No one who cares is going to buy one. So all the moms whose husbands buy them one of these to drive around to the shops and take the kids to school, they're unlikely to.
You're back tomorrow. I'll get you into this thing just to change your mind a little bit. But the point of the matter is they actually do have emergency vehicles in Sweden with Volvo where they've lifted the restrictions and the things on that. He says those cars are substantially faster. He wouldn't give me exact details of just where the speed is and what the limits and things are, but he says it's substantially faster. So
not substantially faster than an unlimited SL63 or 5.
I don't know. It would be. It has to come down to gearing and net power. And if you've got 300 kilowatts, you've got 300 kilowatts. That's going to get you through the air at speed at whatever the equation.
I wonder if anyone will have a go at the cannonball run in an EV.
No. Well, there you go.
Just purely because you don't have the charging infrastructure in place yet. As soon as you start talking long distances, the conversation is over. Because I agree with you. So
let's move on to something that is the polar opposite of all of your economical what. A Ford Raptor. I drove one not too long ago.
In fact, they're exactly the same. 1.3 million rand, both cars.
Well, I know what I'd rather
yes. One will do whatever your equivalent of liters per 100 is, and one will do a lot of liters per 100.
What was your final fuel consumption in the Raptor miles?
So it was, I think it was 17.5 or 17.8 or something like that.
Okay, so you weren't sparing the horses there.
You claimed to get over 20 in your short run.
No, that was on a short little. That was just a short little. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Scare me is what you can drink. Yeah.
The Raptor is the bee's knees. That has got to be the coolest car in this country. 4-hour roads, like with that power, that ability off-road, it is magic.
Did you put it in bio mode? Did you put it in bio mode?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to.
On the road. You're supposed to use that in soft sand, I was told.
No, of course not on the road. It says when you put it in Baja mode, off-road use only. I'm a responsible journalist.
Okay. So you off-roaded it.
Most of Joburg's roads are considered off-roading. So, yeah.
Professional driver on a closed circuit.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Excellent. And what difference does the Baja mode make? Am I pronouncing it correctly? It is Baja.
I don't know.
Aha.
Is
how I understand the pronunciation to be.
I don't know. It just puts everything
South American.
in. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't think it matters.
Although the suspension becomes.
I used to call them a bodger bug when there was a beetle with the back end replaced with a fiberglass back end. So I was told it's not badger, it's Baja.
So, William, we know you don't like a Raptor because you think it's slow and
I didn't say I didn't like the Raptor. I love the Raptor. I think it's a great buggy. I think it is the best buggy available on the market today. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing that comes close in terms of the power. I think the ride quality now, the aforementioned GR-S3, it would be interesting to compare them, but I still think that the Raptor has has probably got it beat. It's been doing that sort of suspension for a lot longer, and I think Ford have got that recipe down. It's
When you say that sort of
sure
suspension, you mean like in an entirely different rear suspension with specially developed Fox racing suspension.
shocks, etc.
Yeah. Whereas your GR-S 3 or whatever has got cart axles at the back still.
No. I think the GR-S 3. I must actually. I'll look it up and let you know what it's got at the back. But it's definitely not cart axles with that ride.
It's got
Definitely
leaves. It definitely got leaf springs.
Whatever they've done, it's smooth. It's comfortable.
It's
You're not getting ladder frame vibrations coming through. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's amazing. It's amazing. If you go on test, get into it and have a good go at it, because the way for me the test is always on washboard, right? So as soon as you've got those rumbles, just like they weren't there. The Raptor. You're doing that in the Raptor at significant speed. You could do it in the Raptor. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's cray. But at anything approaching sensible upper limits of human capacity for speed on dirt roads, Toyota's not bad. It's not bad, I have to say. Have you driven the Wild Track X yet?
Yep.
Okay, so same sort of those are the guys that are head to head there, with the knobbly off-roaded tires and the whole shit. It's interesting. I will say that. I think obviously the Ranger has got a far superior modern interface with digital humans than the Toyota does. The Toyota is definitely analog in its approach, whereas Ford is unashamedly digital. And I think that's going to be, if you're sitting on the fence. Let's face it, in South Africa, you're either a Ford driver or you're a Toyota driver, or if you don't like either, you're going to drive an Isuzu.
Yep.
And if you're sitting on the fence, right, and you're not sure which, it's going to be analog versus digital, and it's going to be, well, this thing's going to run for 1 million years, and this thing may not run for 1 million years, but I don't care. And I think it's going to be that actually sways the numbers. We'll see in the sales numbers, but at the moment you can see where Ranger is, and it's doing well. The double cabs.
Do you get a split between the recreational market and the commercial market essentially in those sales numbers, or is it just
I think
number of Hiluxes, number of Rangers?
No, so they'll split it out into double cabs and single cabs. So you can drill down to that level of detail, but you can't, for instance, so you can see how many Raptors they sold. So they will give you a model breakdown. So it's and again, it's you say it's the best toy in the market, Miles, but the Gladiator sold out a lot of those when they began. And relative for a Gladiator, for a Jeep, the numbers there were pretty high. But you're talking about a toy. There's a degree of workability around the Raptor that I think that the Gladiator just doesn't have. The Gladiator is a complete toy. It's just for shits and giggles, and it's just it'll absolutely go anywhere. I honestly think it would outdo a Raptor in terms of its off-road capabilities, hands down. But we'd need far more experienced people to test that.
Like rock crawling type off-roading, fair.
Yeah.
High speed off-roading.
No. Yeah, no. There's nothing to touch a Raptor. There's nothing. No, I quite agree. So tell me about Formula One this weekend, just quickly.
Well, there's not a huge amount to tell. That race was boring. My word. Until
Really?
the last sort of, 15 laps when Lando started to make an edge for the win. The commentators got terribly excited, but ultimately Max always had it in hand. It was a snooze fest.
But they've got to try and draw some excitement into it. But isn't the case that McLaren is now getting closer to Red Bull? Than they've ever been. the cause.
Without
for
a doubt, that
the
McLaren
for the
are now,
Mm.
McLaren are now
It's
the
remarkable
second.
how they've come along in the last 18 months.
Mm.
It's they've definitely hit upon something.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Red Bull's performance does if they're able to keep up the development with all of their collective sideshows. But it's boding well for the future of
Collective
Formula One
sideshow.
to have a little bit of. Someone found the Bernie button and pushed it. Like there's things happening.
I think that's probably a good way of putting it. But for me, it's interesting that you have Max that's right out there. Then you have McLaren, and somewhere way down is the other Red Bull, driven by the other guy.
No, it's remarkable.
So
like it's certainly a
tells
case for Max's driving ability.
Well, is it that's separating McLaren from Red Bull, or is it the fact that McLaren have now got two really shit-hot drivers in decent machinery? I mean, we always have this debate. It's a case of, is it the driver or is it the car? So in this particular instance, where you've got Red Bull split by quite a margin between first and wherever the other guy ended up, and then you've got McLaren that were much closer. So what is that telling us? I think it's telling us McLaren actually have the better car.
A better car than Red Bull. Hell, that is quite a statement.
I think that's quite a statement.
We're gonna see. We're gonna see. I mean, Formula One moves in glacial terms. Let's until something changes, and then it changes really quickly. But the small increments of improvement are seasons. Next season is going to be, I think, the one for McLaren to lose.
My guess is next season's much of the same. Max will win another title. 26 is when the regs change, and that will be the interesting one. I don't see any of the sideshows. The Red Bull sideshows at the moment might have a material long-term impact, but I don't see them losing next year. Provided Max is still in the car.
They're not going to have, well, exactly, you see, so there's a driver or there's a car. So, I mean, it's the combination there they've got is working well. It's going to be interesting. I don't think they're going to have it all their own way.
It must be very, I would very much like to be a fly on the wall inside Red Bull at the moment. Because, I mean, a Formula One team is a hell of a complex, highly specialized engineering firm. And you have to have everyone configured and pulling in the same direction, same development, everyone working toward the same common goal. And you can't do that with the amount of soap opera level drama. I mean, when you've got Eddie Jordan involved, hell, things have gone seriously soap opera.
I'm not going to comment on that. What I did want to say is in those build-ups that they have, where they had Lando walking through the McLaren team, and he stood up on the top there, and you saw all the McLaren guys that are part of that Formula One team, and you realize how many people are actually engaged in putting him in a car to get first place in this thing. It is staggering. Have you
seen the photo comparison between Tyrrell in 1973 and McLaren in 2023? I'll find it, but it's like 6 Oaks and 3 cars, and Jackie Stewart, and versus this like hall full of people. But you get the sense that McLaren, if everyone is there, everyone's bought in. They are not distracted. And it must be hard to be an engineer at Red Bull now and not be distracted, not be wondering if you're now on a sinking ship or, it's, and I think it happens to all the big teams. It cycles. But, someone found the Bernie button because there's now something to talk about in Formula One, even if it's Adrian Newey and Eddie Jordan. Hell, who would have thought?
So, any predictions for Monaco next race?
Whoever's on pole is probably going to win.
Well, I mean, shit. That's like saying, is the Pope Catholic or water's wet?
It's hard to
That's all I
not
have to
back
say.
Max, but surely Leclerc is due some luck at Monaco. Like, hell, the poor Oaks home race, and it always looks so good and it always goes so wrong. So maybe I'll find a Ferrari hat. Probably says Decra on it. I'll put it on for the Monaco GP.
No
Ferrari
predictions, but
undoes
yeah.
all luck. They have a special knack for just destroying themselves.
Imploding, I think, is the word. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's.
What's
did
your
they say about
prediction for Monaco, Miles?
South African cricket team, they choke.
My predictions, Max. It's hard to predict
Statistically,
anything
it's
else.
hard to go against that.
Well, exactly. I mean,
Exactly.
you're an accountant. You're an accountant. So you're going to take the safe, predictable option. You know? And you will be right until you're wrong. But when you're wrong, everyone's going to be surprised. You know, so it's going to be one of those. Yeah, I'm not going to play contrarian and say that I think that it's going to be chance for Leclerc or maybe even. I don't know if the McLarens are going to be great around Monaco. I just don't know.
Lando is very good on tires. The car's been quick. I mean, there's. I'm certainly much more enthusiastic about watching a Grand Prix now than I was 3 races ago. I think there could be a surprise. You know, I'd
But
watch
they bring
anyway because
Bring
that's
some
what we do.
competitive. Yeah. I concur with that. Cool. We'll leave it there. Thanks, chaps.
I think we have covered all
Alrighty.
of our things. Cool.
Well,
We
until
will
next
try
time.
this again next week. Yeah.
So let's call that a wrap, guys. Thank you very much. Keep left, pass
Cool.
right. Till next time.
Adios.
Till next
Cheers.
time. Cheers.
You know what we forgot to do was, never mind. I'll edit that bit out.
Discussion along very similar lines to this earlier, and I was proved right, which I expected to be, that it is stated in the law that you're allowed to flash people to make them move over,
Are you?
or you're allowed to, Rule 36.
Of course you are.
No, but maybe when you did your license of the horse, it was the law then, but things change, so